Your ankles have disconnected from the earth, and that's why you feel without ground, unmoored, hovering just above the life you're trying to live. In a few days, you will reactivate this vibrational link with 3 precise somatic gestures that turn the ankles back into anchoring portals. There is a forgotten point where your feet meet the ground, and it's precisely in this joint that the current of vital energy breaks, leaving you floating in a way that no mindset hack can repair. This rupture shows up as nameless anxiety that stalks you without a story, as a creative blockage that paralyzes your impulse at the exact moment it wants to be born, and as an exhaustion that no rest can resolve, because the fatigue isn't in the muscles, it's in the fragmented vibration that cannot complete its descent. What you're going to discover here isn't anywhere else in your feed, and leaving this video now is postponing the only thing that gives your body real stability back. Stay, we're going to reveal how this disconnection took hold, and why the ankles quietly carry the missing key you've been searching for. What you feel doesn't live exclusively in the mind or in the emotions, it lives in the body, where sensation tells the truth before you do. Instability has a physical address, the ankles, base portals of the body temple, where the descending energetic flow either finds its foundation or loses it. When these portals close, the vital stream that should circulate from top to bottom meets an invisible barrier and flows back. Pressure rises in the upper centers, while the base remains empty, like a house with a beautiful roof and no footing to hold it. The Hermeticists called this joint the junction of the world with the wanderer, the precise point, where the earth offers support and the spirit finds direction. Reactivating this link requires 3 conscious gestures: a touch that awakens the sleeping portals, a descending breathing that guides the flow downward, and a circular movement that releases the memory stuck inside the deep structure. Together, these gestures restore what was broken. They rethread the tether that your nervous system has been trying to rebuild on its own. When this happens, the body regains stability without mental effort, presence without a complicated mindfulness technique, and a creative impulse that rises from the base, not from force or willpower, but from reconnection. What was blocked begins to flow again, and the ground ceases to be an absence to become a living foundation under every step you take. A felt floor that meets you every time your weight arrives. In the mystery schools of ancient Egypt, before any initiation, the ankles were anointed with specific oils in circular movements, a somatic technology that recognized this joint as a living lock between worlds. It wasn't empty symbolism, it was an activation protocol. Without opening this portal, the initiate would remain divided between sky and ground, unable to manifest the invisible in the physical plane. Centuries later, Thomas Myers mapped the deep fascia and showed that the ankles are a convergence of at least 3 myofascial lines that run along the entire vertical axis. Any blockage there compromises the structural integrity of the whole body, like a kink in a vertical cable that destabilizes every floor it supports. Stephen Porges demonstrated that the nervous system only switches off the alert state when it receives complete proprioceptive feedback from the body's base. If the receptors in the ankles don't send clear signals to the brain, the body interprets that it's falling even while standing still, and activates permanent vigilance that never truly shuts down. What the Egyptians called an energetic portal, neuroscience calls a proprioceptive receptor. They're different languages describing the same phenomenon. When the base doesn't speak to the brain, the human being floats, scanning for danger because the ground is silent. Reactivating these receptors requires precise somatic technology. 3 gestures that operate in distinct yet inseparable layers: tactile, respiratory, and kinetic. The first gesture is conscious touch, which works like an access password for portals that have been locked for years. Sit comfortably or stand, take off your shoes, and bring your hands to your ankles. Envelop each malleolus, the two protruding bones on each side, with the palms of your hands, creating contact that is firm yet gentle, intentional rather than forceful. Now begin slow, circular movements, as if you were opening a forgotten lock that has rusted over time. The pressure isn't strong, it's specific. You're not massaging superficial muscles, you're conversing with deep structures that stopped responding. Maintain this circular touch for 2 or 3 minutes on each ankle without haste. What happens in this contact is neurological. Sleeping receptors in the skin, in the fascia, and in the periosteum begin to send signals to the brain, informing it that this region exists, is safe, and deserves attention, a quiet but potent broadcast from the base. The fascia around the malleoli is dense and poorly irrigated, and when it doesn't receive conscious movement for years, it condenses, forming a hardened layer that blocks the dialogue between the ankle and the central nervous system. This circular touch gradually breaks that hardening, releasing memories stored in the structure. You may feel involuntary contractions, sudden heat, tingling that climbs up the legs. These signals aren't discomfort. They're a response, a sign that the body is remembering how to speak to the earth again, one sensation at a time. While you touch, observe without judgment what emerges: small tremors, an impulse to wiggle your toes, an unexpected sigh that seems to happen by itself. Each signal is precious information. The portal is opening, the fascia is loosening, the nervous system is recognizing that this base is real and available. Don't force anything, just maintain the contact and allow the body to respond in its own time. Conscious touch doesn't correct by effort. It awakens through presence, like turning on a light rather than rearranging the furniture in the dark. When both ankles have been touched for long enough, you'll notice a subtle yet undeniable change. The feet feel more present on the ground, as if they had gained weight. Attention, which was previously scattered in the head, begins to naturally descend to the base of the body. This is the first sign that reconnection has begun. The proprioceptive receptors have resumed, sending reliable data to the brain, informing it that there is ground beneath you and that it can be trusted. This gesture alone already dismantles part of the invisible vigilance that kept the body on constant alert. But complete reactivation requires the other 2 layers: breathing that guides the descending flow, and movement that releases the memory stuck in the joint. The touch opened the door. Now we're going to teach the body to walk through it and inhabit gravity again, as an ally, not as a threat. The second gesture is descending breathing, and it doesn't work like guided visualization. It works like direct neural directing. Where attention goes, the flow follows. And that is what will transform the opening of the portals into active reconnection. Stand or sit with an upright spine, close your eyes, and inhale normally through the nose without changing your natural rhythm. The shift happens on the exhalation as you let the air out, guide all your attention downward, traveling through the torso as if you were descending inside your own structure with each breath. Let your attention pass through the pelvis, descend through the thighs, cross the knees, travel down the shins, and finally land at the base of the feet. Don't imagine this happening as a picture. Feel the real path as if each exhalation carries awareness downward, depositing weight where there used to be emptiness. With every breathing cycle, the body becomes slightly denser, more present, like invisible roots sinking deeper into the soil. You're not creating something new. You're giving the body back a function it lost. the capacity to weigh and to rest into that weight. The nervous system interprets weight as safety. When the body allows itself to weigh, the alert state switches off automatically. That's why so many people live contracted. The body retains a defensive lightness, as if it were always ready to run. Descending breathing breaks this pattern by sending clear signals that there is ground, there is support, there is permission to let go, to settle, to be held. Continue for 2 or 3 minutes without hurry, letting each exhalation be deeper than the previous one, like a tide learning again how to go out. The signs that the neural directing is working are subtle yet unmistakable. The feet begin to warm, the heels gain a pleasant sense of weight, the jaw releases without you forcing it, and the eyes soften from the inside. There may be spontaneous sighs, that's release. The body is recognizing that it no longer needs to float in permanent alert, because the base is finally receiving conscious attention. The vibrational exhaustion you've been carrying for months begins to drain downward, exiting through the feet as heat, as tingling, as a gentle sense of settling. When descending breathing stabilizes, something extraordinary happens. Thoughts slow down naturally, not through mental effort, but through gravitational reorganization. The mind finally finds a center of gravity, and that center is at the base of the body, not at the crown of the head. Now, the third gesture will complete the reconnection, releasing the memory stuck in the ankle joint itself so movement can become trust again. Standing or seated, begin to move one ankle at a time in slow rotations, exploring the full available range without haste or force. This movement isn't mechanical calisthenics, it's somatic investigation. You're asking the body where there is restriction, where there is fear of letting go, where the structure refuses to open, and why. The deep fascia responds in its own language, clicks, warmth, micro shifts, and a gradual ease that wasn't there before. You may hear small pops, feel spaces opening inside the joint. Notice involuntary sighs escaping your chest. None of this is accidental. These signals are confirmation that release is happening. With each conscious rotation, you rebuild the neural bridge between ankle and brain, teaching the nervous system to trust the movement of this region again. Don't force a range that doesn't exist yet. Respect the current limit and watch how it expands on its own over the cycles, like a door easing on its hinges as rust dissolves. When the 3 gestures meet, touch that awakens, breath that guides, movement that releases the body, recognizes the ground in a visceral way. The markers of reactivation are unmistakable, genuine warmth in the soles of the feet, as if someone had lit a small flame under each foot. Pleasant weight in the heels, a sense that you can finally rest your entire body on the ground without vigilance, and spontaneous vertical alignment between the base and the crown of the head without postural effort, as if a plumb line had quietly found center. And then comes the deepest marker, mental slowing that doesn't come from a mindfulness technique, but from real gravitational reorganization. Thoughts, which previously spun in a frantic loop, finally find a center of gravity, and that center is at the base of the body, not in the head. The mind stops trying to hold what the body is already supporting. The creative impulse that was blocked starts flowing again because there is now a solid base from which it can emerge and take shape. The stability that returns isn't an achievement of effort, it's a recognition of reconnection. The body remembers how to inhabit gravity as an ally, how to allow the earth to hold it instead of resisting it. These 3 gestures, touch, breath, movement, don't create something new. They restore what has always been available but was forgotten. Now the vibrational current that broke at the ankles circulates freely again, returning to the body the sensation that there is ground under every step. Brenda was 47 when she realized that the exhaustion she carried had no visible cause. She slept 8 hours but woke up tired, went to therapy but kept floating, meditated but the mind never stopped spinning. The feeling was of always being about to collapse, as if she were walking on thin ice that could crack at any moment. No one around her understood, because on the outside everything seemed to work. Work, family, routine. But inside she lived in permanent freefall, bracing for impact that never came. For months she tried different approaches, adjusted her diet, increased the frequency of therapy sessions, dove into spiritual practices that promised grounding. Nothing touched the root of the problem. Indecision paralyzed even the simplest choices: what clothes to wear, which way to go, what to eat, and the creative impulse that used to move her had completely disappeared. It was as if the body were present, but she didn't truly inhabit it. A life performed without the weight of being in it. One day, after yet another bodywork session that brought no relief, Brenda was in the waiting room leafing through a book on somatic medicine someone had left on the table. On one of the pages, she read about the ankles as a point of vibrational rupture, the place where the body loses contact with the earth and enters permanent vigilance. That struck a strange chord. She had never paid attention to that region, but upon touching her own ankles right there, she felt a deep rigidity that seemed to have been there for years, without her knowing, a forgotten armor around a forgotten portal. She decided to test the 3 gestures described in the text: conscious touch, descending breath, circular movements, repeating them for 3 days in a row, without grand expectations, simply following the protocol with quiet discipline. On the 4th day, upon waking, Brenda stepped onto the bedroom floor and for the first time in years felt real weight in her feet. It wasn't a metaphor, it was an undeniable physical sensation. The heels had substance, the soles were warm, and the thoughts that used to race the moment she opened her eyes were surprisingly slow. The floating had ceased, not because she had achieved something, but because the body had remembered where the earth touched it. The base, once absent, existed again. This transformation that happened for Brenda in a few days can happen for you in the same time. 3 to 4 days, practicing the 3 gestures consistently, steadily, without strain. The markers that prove the integration are physical and trackable. Genuine warmth in the soles of the feet, pleasant weight in the heels, breath that naturally descends without you forcing it. When these signs appear, the portal has been reactivated. But to prevent the floating from returning in moments of stress or inattention, you need a gesture signal that functions as an immediate somatic anchor you can use anywhere, standing or seated, whenever you notice mental floating returning. Bring your hands to your ankles, enveloping the malleoli with gentle firmness. Make a slow, deep exhalation as you feel your body's weight increase at the base. Don't imagine this. Feel the real weight dropping through bone and into floor. Repeat for 30 to 60 seconds. This is the return point. Touch the ankles, descending exhalation, and the internal phrase, "My body knows the ground." It isn't an abstract affirmation. It's a measurable ceiling that keeps you anchored after reconnection has already been established. A quick key that locks the door open. We spend our lives trying to solve instability out there, seeking the right relationship, the ideal job, the place where we'll finally feel at home. But the truth is that no external place can offer what the body has lost internally. The feeling of having ground. The floating you feel isn't a lack of achievement, it's a lack of anchoring. And anchoring isn't at the top of the head where thoughts spin. It's at the forgotten base, where the earth touches you every day and you no longer notice because the signal went quiet. The ankles are the link between the invisible and the embodied, between the intention that lives in the spirit and the manifestation that happens in the physical plane. Without this link activated, you may have the brightest ideas, the loftiest dreams, but nothing descends. Nothing gains weight, form, reality. Creation requires foundation, and the foundation begins exactly where you step. That's why the ancients treated this joint as a sacred portal, because it is through it that the upper world meets the lower world and becomes a path you can actually walk. Simone, while a French philosopher who devoted her life to the study of human rootedness, wrote, "To be rooted is perhaps the most important and least recognized need of the human soul." She wasn't speaking of metaphorical roots in a poem. She was speaking of the body as the anchor of existence, of the ground as the primary condition for the soul to become present. When you reactivate the portals of the ankles, you're not just adjusting body mechanics, you're giving the soul permission to inhabit the body fully, to finally be here, now, whole. God doesn't manifest only on high. God manifests through the anchored body that allows itself to be held by the earth. When the body finds the ground, the spirit finds direction. When the base is firm, intuition ceases to be mental noise and becomes embodied clarity. What seemed like creative blockage was merely vital energy without foundation, and now that the foundation has been restored, the flow returns. What looked like chronic indecision was the body asking for a root, and now that the root exists, movement becomes possible again, decisions land, and life regains contour. The earth never abandoned you. You only forgot where it touched you. And now that you remember, each step carries a different weight, not the weight of burden, but the weight of presence. You no longer need to float in permanent alert because the base has returned. The ground was here all along, waiting for you to realize that stability isn't an external achievement, it's an internal reconnection. And this reconnection begins exactly where you've always been, but never paid attention, in the two forgotten portals that link you to the only force that never let you go. If this content resonated with you, leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. This expands the field of knowledge we're building together. I want to know how the reactivation of these portals is happening in your body. Write in the comments, "My ankles reconnect my energy to the earth." This affirmation seals the reconnection you've initiated now and strengthens the link that has been restored, especially when repeated after your practice. Share this video with someone you know who is without ground, floating in invisible exhaustion and seeking stability in the wrong places. And don't stop here. Click on the screen and watch the next transformative video on the channel, because each portal you reactivate in the body brings you closer to the full presence that has always been yours by right. Remember, when the body meets the earth again, life ceases to be floating and becomes a path. The ground was here all along, you just needed to remember where it touched you.